Hello, everybody. This is Brett. Today is October 3rd, 2017, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, I am going to do another reading from the book of Hebrews, but first, I would like to backtrack a little bit and just go over the scripture again because it's important, and this is one of the biggest reasons for me to do these recordings is to really try and drive this home because, well, as you and I both know, that when you read something, it takes a while to really let it work its own, the way it was said and taught back in the time it was written. It takes a while to think about it and to place things in the proper places. And that's what I found with Scripture is sometimes you have to read it once and then you have to go back again. And then sometimes again and again and again. And that's how the Bible is. And that's why people will say, well, the Bible is a owner's manual to life. And then that is true because not every time you read the Bible, it reads the same way because we're going through different things at different times in our lives. And certain verses have a greater appeal, let's just say, or a greater strength than other verses. So we tend to gravitate to these verses for whatever strength or weakness that is. I am no, what can I say? And I'm no exception to that. I definitely have times in my life where, okay, I prefer this book or I prefer that book. It's only because I'm learning something out of it. And this is why I chose the book of Hebrews, because recently I had done a word search and I was reading it and I took the time to read the whole book, and it really just struck me as, wow, this is just incredible. So back in Hebrews chapter 9 is really where I was really, really drawn to when I read this. It really hit me. Mainly for the lesson about the word that I couldn't figure out last night, covenant. We have what's referred to as the new covenant, and we have what some call the old covenant. The Bible calls it in Hebrews here, I believe, the old covenant. But then again, the Old Testament, as it's commonly called, I believe, is a misnomer. It's a mistake because really this is where the book of Hebrews is really hitting home for me, is because it links Paul's apostleship to the prophets of old, and he speaks about it right here in these very chapters of this book. And I know there are people that can take 2 or 3 verses and probably talk on just 2 or 3 verses for an hour or two very easily. Well, I haven't done that because I'm just trying to give a broader overview. So in this chapter 9, verse 1, then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. For there was a tabernacle made, the first, wherein was the candlestick and the table, and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. Okay, so this speaks of the first covenant, the sacrifices that were being done, back in the beginnings of, the law established by Moses and with Moses, I should say, between the covenant between Moses and his people Israel. So there's just a huge amount of lessons contained in the first covenant. So, all right. I just wanted to go back here to, let's go back to around chapter 9, verse 11. But Christ being come a high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and of ashes of a heifer sprinkled the unclean sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, that they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of a testator. For the testament is of force after men are dead. Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. Whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood. Okay. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book and all the people. All right. Saying, this blood of the testament which God hath enjoined unto you, moreover, he sprinkled likewise with blood and both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry. And almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with a better sacrifice. But the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Man, that verse 24. For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Man. Yeah. You see what I'm trying to tell you here? I mean, I guess, I don't know. To me, I just can't read this enough right now. It's probably just because where I'm at in my faith. And all right. I can continue now, but I really wanted to finish that thought. This transformational thought is really from Hebrews 9, the chapter 9, specifically, from, say, verse 11 to that 25, 11 to 25. That really hits me hard. I really enjoy that. It's a really good lesson. So I finished Hebrews chapter 11 last night, and now I'm going to start reading Hebrews chapter 12. Hello, everybody. This is Brett. Today is October 3rd, 2017, and I am currently reading in the book of Hebrews. I left off last night at the end of chapter 11. And to just briefly go back to what I was trying to say, so far in the book of Hebrews, there's a great lesson that I had learned in chapter 9, verses 11 through 25, I want to say. I guess maybe I could read it for you again, just to summarize. Okay, so that's Hebrews chapter 9, verse 11. But Christ, being come a high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building. Okay? Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For who? For us. Okay, this is getting back to Sola Scriptura here, which is the 5 solas. And those are the very basis for the Protestant Reformation. The Bible alone, in faith alone, in grace alone, through Christ alone, for the glory of God alone. Okay? I hope I got that right. This is what defined Protestantism, is you don't need a priest. You don't need ritualistic worship. All you need is the Bible. All you need is Christ and his grace. All of these are very important to the fundamental principle of Protestantism. And what is Protestantism? It is the protest of the papacy, straight up. The man of sin, the son of perdition, the little horn of Daniel, all points back to the office of the Pope. And I just wish that there were more people in America that were aware of America being the second beast of Revelation chapter 13 as well, because that's something I firmly believe now too, is that this beast growing in the midst of rising up out of the midst of the wilderness is our country in the world today. And, it makes a great deal of sense. There's a lot of things that need to be gone over here. And this is the third day of October. So we have 28 days till the big day, the 500th year anniversary of Martin Luther. And I just wish that there were more people talking about it out there. There just isn't, it's very few and far between. Sure, there might be people that will celebrate along with Rome in their ecumenical celebration. But really, that is the compromise of the people of this modern day. The people of the Lutheran Church, the people I was raised with, they don't tend to have any real desire to want to learn the Bible or even carry a Bible with them to church on Sunday. I was never, ever taught in the Lutheran Church to bring a Bible into school or a Bible into church. I remember when we had the Bible, and when I was really young, I really liked it. I really was, hoping to learn more, but what has happened through these church doctrines has completely destroyed what little Protestantism was ever left in America. It used to be a lot stronger. In fact, here's a good subject. I was doing photos for a teaser video almost a year ago. I'd say about 10 months ago. I was working on a teaser video for Jörg Glissman, and I had a bunch of time off, and I took a lot of time in making this, and I came across a photo of Peter Cartwright, and that one really struck me. So maybe what I should do here, just for a change of pace away from Hebrews here for a moment, is talk about Peter Cartwright for a minute, because I think there's a bit of history in here that is really interesting. Let's see. Yeah, Peter Cartwright, Wright. Cart, like pushing a cart. Wright, like the Wright brothers. Cartwright, a revivalist. And I was reading this Wikipedia article. It was very interesting. Born Peter Cartwright Jr., or better known as Peter Cartwright, and also known as Uncle Peter, backwoods preacher, Lord's plowman, Lord's Breaking Plow, and The Kentucky Boy, September 1st, 1785 through September 25th, 1872. Peter Cartwright was an American Methodist revivalist preacher in the Midwest, as well as twice an elected legislator in Illinois. Cartwright, a Methodist missionary, helped start America's second Great Awakening, personally baptizing 12,000 converts. Opposed to slavery, Cartwright moved from Kentucky to Illinois and was elected to the lower house of the Illinois General Assembly in 1828 and 1832. In 1846, Abraham Lincoln defeated Cartwright for the seat in the United States Congress. As a Methodist circuit rider, Cartwright rode circuits in Kentucky and Illinois, as well as Tennessee, Indiana, and Ohio. His biography in 1856 made him nationally prominent. Okay, so early life, Peter Cartwright Jr., the son of Peter Cartwright Sr., and talks about politics, author of autobiography, backwoods preacher. I was reading something about him. It's very, very interesting. It really moved me. But I can't find it right now. I'll have to look at this some other time, I think. But anyway, there's a photo that I found of Peter Cartwright that really impressed me. And I used it in this teaser video. And the thing that really impressed me about this photo is the quote. I think it goes like this. Forgive me if I get this completely, if I don't get this completely right. Unsanctified wealth poured into the church by the million never fails to corrupt and never fails to corrupt the church, or something like this. So you just think about, well, what is unsanctified wealth? Well, that would be wealth that has no real value in terms of Christ, what Christ gave us. So just think about it for a second. What is sanctified wealth? What is really sanctified wealth? Sanctification is a process. It's a lifelong process. For those of us that are saved, that sanctification is the process of a believer working out his faith in fear and trembling, right? That's the way I understand it from the scriptures. Let's see. If I look up in my old dictionary here, sanctification, I can just quickly read you, so I don't have it memorized what the dictionary says. So I look it up. Okay, sanctification. Okay, well, sanctification is the act of making holy, the act of consecrating or of setting apart for a sacred purpose. Okay, to sanctify in a general sense, to cleanse, purify, or make holy, to separate, set apart, or appoint to a holy, sacred, or religious use, to purify, to prepare for divine service, and for partaking of holy things, to separate, ordain, and appoint to the work of redemption and the government of the church. Wow. The government of the church. Oh man. How incredibly perverted the government of the church is these days, huh? The church militant is what I think of immediately. Man. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Anyway, it's so incredible how far the church has been taken these days. How the truth has been taken out of the church, how vacant the churches are of the truth, since these ministers that are in the pulpits behind these churches, the ministers behind the pulpits in the churches is what I wanted to say. These ministers are, preaching us something that is so foreign to history. In other words, we have such corruption now. We've never seen this kind of corruption before. And it's just so inside out, upside down, and backwards from what it should be, from what it was. The true faith of Christ and his apostles. It just, in every single way, you look at this Lutheran church, it has been, today's modern Lutheran church has been just completely taken over and deceived. And you would just have to be, completely void of any critical thought at all to go along with it, because once you have looked at the historical writings and you looked at the history of the church and what happened during the Protestant Reformation, and there's so many books and materials now written with these casuistry and sophistry all over it, and you can't get to this truth anymore through these authors. And there's so many of them. I mean, there are so few books that actually say it like it is. It's just astonishing. But that's what Jesuitism has brought to this country. At one time, there was a very strong opposition to it. but that was at the time of Abraham Lincoln. And really, it has gone very quickly downhill. It's very interesting how Protestantism really did have a firm grip on the governments of the world back in its heyday, for good reason. You know, these people that came before the Protestant reformers paid a very heavy price for coming to that knowledge. And they fought very hard through the sort of the spirit, really, not through carnal ways of fighting, but through the sword of the Spirit, the sword that Jesus brought. You know, it's not a carnal sword. And this is where the people that don't have this Holy Spirit, they don't get it. They think it's a carnal sword. It's like the sign of the cross, right? I mean, you have all these different symbols, quote unquote, that are used in all these different, I mean, you have, everyone's trying to sell you a symbol these days. You know, it's like you got to wear a symbol or something to be in or something. It's stupid. You know, it's really, really dumb. But this is how the world works. It's how they train us with these idols. And, you know, they're basically making a mockery out of Christ, really. And, you know, I can see right through that now, but before it wasn't so easy to do that. You know, really you need to have a synergistic type of study with the Bible and history. And then you really, really are going to get this. Otherwise, it just doesn't cut it, man. The Bible will tell you the spiritual end of things, but the history really verifies it and really brings it home. So I think that, you know, the Bible by itself is great. Of course, it's wonderful. But history along with it just gives you a double whammy. Then you really have something concrete. So anyway, let's see. I was going to get to reading some scripture tonight, but I just had to talk a little bit about Peter Cartwright for a bit. Perhaps I'll do a deeper study of him at some point, but for now I'll just leave it at that and move on to back to the book of Hebrews in our fourth day of reading here. Okay, so if you have the book of Hebrews, open up to chapter... I could read chapter 12 then, I guess, huh? Because we stopped in 11. We could go back a few verses. You know, speaking of... go back to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 33. Who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight. Excuse me. Is that Fight? Yeah. waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, they were tempted, were slain with the sword, and wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts, and in mountains, and in dens and caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. Okay. Chapter 12. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? I'll repeat. Chapter 12, verse 7. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards, and not sons. So, if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. All right, we're talking of Christ's holiness, not out of the Pope's holiness here. You know, you hear all these politicians say that, His Holiness. Oh, it makes me sick. I couldn't believe it when the Pope came in 2015 and all those politicians were calling him His Holiness. It just makes you sick. And then, of course, during the presidential race this year, I mean, they mock the Bible. These people are mocking the Bible, you know. All these politicians. But you see, they get away with it in an ecumenical environment that we live in today. You know, the ecumenical movement really has done an incredible amount of damage to Christ, but yet he allows it to happen. I think he's allowing this to happen because he really wants to drive it home to us. You know, those of us that know and are paying attention and that are aware of what these politicians and these ministers of righteousness are doing behind the pulpits of these churches. You know, they're not telling us the truth here. They're giving us a false gospel. You know, it's not something that we need to take. You know, it's something we need to protest about for sure. We're not going to be able to change anyone unless they see the value in what we're doing or what we're saying. And they start thinking about this and doing the research on it. It's really a very difficult position that we're in today. And to those of us that actually study Martin Luther and study the history surrounding, you know, what Christ actually gave us, and those that have taken and tried to minister the faith once delivered to the saints. You know, those of us that actually study this, you know, it's just astonishing what's going on today. It makes you sick. It makes you mad. It makes you just astonished, I guess, you know. You know, within my own family, I guess it's one of those things that just takes a lot of time. I need to spend more time with the members of my family, you know, and try and get a better grip on chastising them. You know, I think that's really what we're getting to here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this verse, chapter 12. Verse 5, and ye have forgotten exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. Okay, so that doesn't have to do with me. That's from the Lord. So, okay, the chastening of the Lord. Now, what is the chastening of the Lord? Well, it's a good question. You know, maybe I would see it a little different than other members of my family here. So, how can I explain that? Well, let's look up chastening just for the fun of it. Okay. To chastise, to correct by punishing, to punish, to inflict pain for the purpose of punishing an offender and recalling him to his duty, to reduce to order or obedience, to restrain, to awe, to repress, or no, reduce to order, okay, to repress, yeah, that's right, to correct, to purify by expunging faults. Wow. To purify by expunging faults. Chastisement, correction, punishment, pain inflicted for punishment and correction, either by stripes or otherwise. So the chastising of the Lord. Okay, so we can maybe view that by circumstances, you know. Those of us that are Bible believers, we know that, you know, there are things that happen to us when we're out of line, when we have gone too far with things. I don't know how to explain this, other than to say, well, maybe I'm just going too far here, but despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. So to be rebuked of the Lord, well, that can come through other people too, as far as I see it. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh who corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For verily, for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure. Chapter 12, verse 10. For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Wherefore, lift up the hands which hang down, and the feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. Follow peace with all men, and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. Looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. For ye are not come unto the mount that might be torched. For ye are not come unto the mount that might be touched, and that burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest, and the sound of the trumpet, and the voice of words, which voice they that heard entreated that the word should not be spoken to them any more, for they could not endure that which was commanded. And if so much as a beast touch the mountain, it shall be stoned or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. But ye are come unto the Mount Sion, and unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and unto an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to all the spirits, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to this blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh. For if they escape not who refused him that spake on earth, much more shall we escape if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, and as of things. Let me try that again. Verse 27. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire. Wow. What a way to end the chapter. Wherefore we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire. All right, and there ends the reading for my little recording tonight on this 3rd of October. And thanks for joining in. And I'll see you tomorrow, I hope. And God bless you and keep you. Till then, bye-bye.